Prosecutors are expected to play another interview between police and the only person charged in Tupac's murder today. Yesterday, jurors listened intently to a 2008 interview where the defendant, Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, told detectives his nephew fired the shots that killed Tupac. Prosecutors allege Davis orchestrated that hit, but the defense has said his confession was a lie. Now the court's expected to hear another recording from 2009. Alex Stone has the latest.
On Thursday, jurors sat for hours listening to what prosecutors say was a confession from Dwayne Davis, recorded by LAPD detectives who were investigating the LA murder of Christopher Wallace, known as Notorious B.I.G. or Biggie Smalls, when they say Davis admitted to being involved in the Tupac Shakur murder. They met with them in December of 2008 when they say Davis admitted to his involvement in Shakur's murder and said his nephew, Orlando Anderson, actually fired the gun.
He leaned over on the window, we rolled down the window, popped.
Now, everybody else allegedly with him in the car that night is dead, killed in other gang-related violence. Prosecutors allege Davis told of his involvement because he was under an immunity-like deal called a proffer agreement to work with police. In fact, at the beginning of the interview, the LAPD detective said what he said could not be used against him and that nothing would leave that room. But prosecutors say the proffer agreement was invalidated when Davis went public with his story by publishing a book and doing media interviews. Davis's attorneys claim everything he told the LAPD back in 2008, that it was all a lie. At the time, Las Vegas police didn't even know LA police were talking to Davis about the Shakur murder in Las Vegas.
Alex Stone, thank you. And ABC News legal analyst Brian Buckmeyer is here with more on that trial. Hi, Brian. So Dwayne Davis's book tells a different story than this recorded interview played for the court. How much will that matter for the defense?
Yeah, I think it depends on what those differences are and how large those differences could be. If we're talking about differences of, in one place he's saying that he gave the gun to Orlando Anderson and he reached outside and his hand was over the kind of threshold of the car and he shot the gun, but in another place he's saying he simply just threw the gun in the back, it's going to be up to the jury to decide, are these differences enough to show that he's making up the story in one place and potentially telling the truth in others? Or is this just an issue of memory, that subtle details can be different as you remember something that happened 10, 20, 30 years ago?
Prosecutors are also expected to play another recording today. What are you listening for there?
I'm looking again not only at the subtle differences between the two different statements, what he said back in that interview and now, but also as we continue on to see what type of corroboration the prosecution is going to put forward to say this story, this theory that was given at this point in time that incriminates Keefe D is true, not just because it came out of his mouth, but also because there's other evidence that supports that this is the truest version and not something that the defense is trying to poke holes in further in the case, or maybe even if Keefe D takes a stand himself and gives a whole other kind of framework as to what happened that day.
The trial's wrapping up its first week today. How do you think it's going so far?
I think the prosecution has done pretty well so far, but it's just the first week of a multi-week prosecution. I think they've laid the groundwork in some important things like understanding gang culture, putting on witnesses that can corroborate some subtle allegations against Keefe D. Davis, and then playing the infamous proffer agreement and then moving into more agreements to show what Keefe D. knew and said at that time. I think the foundation is there, but I'm still waiting to see what they build on top of that and how the defense feels that either subtle, immaterial differences or large material differences can give them some sort of reasonable doubt in this case.
Brian Buckmeyer, thank you. And Brian will have more on this trial on Burden of Proof right here on ABC News Live. That airs every weekday, 5:30 p.m. and 8:30 p.m. Eastern.